Hello there. I normally try not to just single any one person out whenever I'm doing stuff like this, but I thought I'd make an exception in this one case and just real quickly go over this. Because this prepubescent looking kid named Matches Malone has been pretty terrible online for a couple of years now. I wasn't really on the DC Twitter scene a couple of years ago, and I came back, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and I can confirm that at least since then, this kid's been doing this, and it's ridiculous. So, Matches, in case you didn't know, lost his original account where we would be able to find all of the proof of the stuff he said and done because he was telling people to kill themselves. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. Matches Malone is a guy who hoped that Warner Brothers would sue and shut down a charity event for suicide prevention because Zack Snyder was hosting it in honor of his dead daughter who died to suicide. This kid was tweeting for days on end, saying how much he hoped that the whole function got shut down and all the money got taken from the fans who had raised the money, and instead went to Warner Brothers. He wanted to defund suicide prevention charities in honor of a dead girl because he hates a director's movies. This is the guy who's now trying to cry wolf. I'm not buying it for a goddamn second. So that should sort of immediately set the tone of how trustworthy and sane he is. But this is a kid who has made hating Zack Snyder and Snyder fans his life. In fact, there was legitimately a time when he was being really toxic and whiny, and someone was like, dude, why are you mad about a movie from 7 years ago? Like, genuinely, just some random normal person wandered into his lunacy and was a bit confused. You know, completely understandable. And he was like, oh, do you actually not know? And he was very polite about it. I'll give credit where it's due. As soon as he doesn't think you're a Snyder fan, he treats you like you're a human being. And he was like, no, I don't know what's going on. He was like, oh, well, I hate Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel every day. And if I forget to for a day, then I'll double or triple up the next day. Because I want everyone to know how bad those movies are and to know that they can't enjoy it. And, when he came back, I actually gave him a fair shake. I said, look, if he's willing to try and turn over a new leaf, I feel like it's hypocritical to like movies about men still being good and getting a second chance at life if we're not willing to practice what we preach, right? If we're not willing to give people a chance to turn their lives around. It's a very Superman thing. Lex Luthor, you've been a menace for years, but you say you're trying to turn your life around. I don't trust you, but I hope that it's true, and I would like to see you turn your life around. And then, without fail, he doesn't, right? And apparently fiction and reality share more than I expected, because Matches is over here saying that of course, the Snyder cult, because he couldn't say Snyder fans, he couldn't say some Snyder fans. It's always a sweeping statement, right? Like, it's always a vendetta. They say they sent him death threats, shock porn, gore, called him ugly, called his fiancée ugly, made fun of his body type, and insulted his art. All because he kept saying he didn't like Batman vs. Superman, which apparently makes Snyder fans, without a doubt, the most pathetic, toxic fan base on the app. Now, I'm going to put a couple images up of what his fan base has done. And I want to say that, at least in a few of these cases, I know that he's exaggerating, because calling him ugly was because he was threatening Snyder fans and posted a picture of himself, and he looks a little bit like a stick figure, I guess, with long hair. So, in the case of, they made fun of my body type, that was like finding out that the dog that's been barking at you from across the street has been a Chihuahua this whole time. So, it wasn't really someone being targeted, it was someone who had been bullying people getting called out, and like people realizing, oh, he's just acting tough. Making fun of his art. That was, he had drawn and again, I'm not the best artist, I try not to mock art. We're all constantly improving. It's a subjective medium. But this is a kid who has spent years complaining about how ugly professional costume designer Michael Wilkinson's superhero costumes were in superhero movies, who then said, well, this is how you really do it. And his art looked really bad. It looked dumb. And it's one of those things of, unless you can do it better, you probably shouldn't insult how someone else is doing it. And he didn't know that. And so insulting his art wasn't insulting his art. He was insulting someone else's art and insulting everyone who liked that art, and then showed that his ability to create anything was, I think, subpar to even a rudimentary thing. Like, look, I know that my sister is just an incredibly talented artist, but she was able to draw better than that at 13. So unless he is, I don't know why he's walking around like he's hot stuff, because he's not. Now, the other things I just assume never happened or are exaggerations, because this is a guy who shares screenshots of every DM he's ever gotten that someone says, hey, you should shut up, and he always exaggerates it, right? Like, he and some of his buddies will say things like, oh, look, this guy sent a death threat, and it's literally just someone like, man, I swear if this guy adapts this character and does it wrong, so help me. And that's what they think is a death threat. They're exaggerating because it helps their narrative. They're mad. And I don't know if they're stupid, right? Because it's entirely possible they are just delusional. But I think that they're not, and that they're not stupid. I think that they're just intentionally lying. I think that because I choose to believe that people aren't this dumb. And the funny thing is that these claims of all these things that happened that he never had any proof for and never mentioned until people started calling him out, because after he said he's turning over a new leaf, he immediately started telling people their world would be better off if they killed themselves because they like the Batman vs. Superman Doomsday design. And like, look, you don't have to like that design, but to tell someone that the world would be better without them in it because they liked that design is pretty cringe and stupid. And it kind of speaks to the nature of how off, like, the beaten path this guy is. Like, he's way off in left field. This dude is not in a sane mental situation. In fact, I was going to have him on the Snyder channel, the Cultist Cast, to talk about his rehabilitation and say, hey, let's turn an enemy into a friend. Let's bond. Let's get some positivity, right? Let's find some common ground. I'm sure there's some comics that we both like. Let's talk about that. And, you know, that obviously never happened because literally within a week of coming back to Twitter, he was telling people to kill themselves again. So I know that these things never happened because he never shared them, because he shares everything and he exaggerates everything. And we would have known about this before now. And he's only doing this now because people are calling him out for being negative. And he only went back to being negative because he found out that unless he's bashing Zack Snyder, no one wants to follow him. All of his followers wallow in that toxicity. Matches Malone regularly called people who like Zack Snyder Snyder cunts, or just cunt in general. And I don't think he's European, so I don't think that's like the fun version of it either. I think that's just the American hateful version of it, where it only means the one worst possible outcome. He doesn't give me a Carl Urban vibe, if I'm being honest. This is a guy who, again, he tells people the world would be better without them. He calls them subhuman, calls them bots, calls them filth, trash, fake fans, cunts, and he does this, right? And he does this for years, and he will specifically go after certain accounts for weeks at a time. And this is the guy who's like, Batman can never kill, that's a terrible, you can't even do that in a storytelling thing. And then we'll say, I love Michael Keaton's Batman, Kevin Conroy on the CW as a murderous Batman was so good, I love it. I'm like, we get it. Like, you're literally blinded by your fanboyism. It is physically impossible for you to like this movie that does the thing that you say they can't do, but you clearly love in other fiction. We're not going to try to convert you to that. We just want you to stop talking about it. Because frankly, if I was still talking about how much I hated Slither, the James Gunn B horror movie, which isn't very good, but like, I don't have strong opinions about it. It's just like food poisoning. I had it, I got over it, and I don't ever want to think about it again. I would look like that's a toxic Snyder cultist, right? Who's obsessing over this thing they hated years ago. What are you going to do? Go back in time and unrelease it? Yet that is all Magus Malone and his followers do. That is all they do. That is all his social media footprint has ever persisted of, is threats, gaslighting, and slander. So when he tries to make it like, I just said I didn't like these movies. No, Matches, that's not all you did. All you did was laugh at people suffering, mock them, degrade them, attack them, harass them, and lie about them, and then paint them as the big bad wolf and you as the scared, poor, helpless victim, when you were the one perpetrating and praising these acts. And now you've created a fictional situation where allegedly similar things that you cheered for are being done to you. And unlike you, you expect us to leap to your aid, despite the fact that your "I'm turning a new leaf" tour immediately turned into "I'm back to telling people they should kill themselves for liking Batman vs. Superman" in less than a week. Dude, if you can't go a week without telling someone to kill themselves over a movie, frankly, that is an insane thing to do to someone. I don't think it's normal to hate someone over a movie. I think it's pretty normal to hate someone over the fact that they hate you over a movie. To hate you as a person, which, by the way, he does. He hates Snyder fans. He hates them as people on a molecular level. He genuinely believes the world would be better if they were all dead. He's not subtle. He's not hiding it. And again, I would show more screenshots of this had he not lost his account for telling people to kill themselves. So I can't find it anymore. Oh yeah, and also, he blocks you the second you call him out. You say, "Really?" Like, he blocked me for saying, "Man, really? You're gonna go back to acting like this? I really thought you were turning over a new leaf." Blocked immediately. This kid is deranged. Like, if it was just a random account I'd never seen before, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Can you show me who these accounts are so I can figure out what's going on?" I would listen to them. But it's Matches Malone, the guy who would absolutely share screenshots the second that someone had sent him any of the things he's claiming that happened. He didn't leave Twitter because his fiance was being threatened. He left because Elon Musk suspended his account for sending death threats. He's even admitted to as much. He wasn't targeted. If anything, he painted a target on his back and got a mild amount of what he puts out in the world sent back to him, and is now lying about the extent of what happened to himself. Because, again, we know what he looks like. We're not scared of him. He's not intimidating. So when he can't be the bully, what does he do? He becomes the victim. Matches Malone is at worst a victim of a situation he created, and more likely, just a lying sack of shit that needs to get over Batman vs. Superman. Go enjoy Superman Legacy. No one trusts you. You duplicitous fuck.
Oh, I don't need a degree to figure you out. You make me laugh. But only because I think you're kind of pathetic. Stop that!
Don't you dare laugh at me!